Good man, Walker. You're on the ball this week. Finally figured out how to register. We'll give it about 3 minutes past and then we'll crack on. We'll just resume from where we finished up a couple of weeks ago. I know last week or the last time I did this sort of had a bit of a nightmare. I don't think I had a winning trade all session, but yeah, we'll see how it goes this time. Yeah, you need the pink monster to keep you focused, Walker. Right, that's 3 minutes now. So we'll crack on here. I'm gonna try and keep the 4 hour open to sort of the left of the screen this time because I think where it's very easy to go wrong with sort of the aggressive M15 entries whenever you're sort of using them in the wrong area. It's like just to emphasize, like those years that sort of watched the last one of these that I did, we got absolutely murdered. And the reason why is quite clear whenever you look at it. Brush. There we are. Sorry, but that took longer than I should have done to find that. So obviously the main reason why we got destroyed the last day was when you look at the 4R, obviously with the M15, it's very easy to sort of, you can identify your little I bosses, II bosses, whatever, various layers of internal structure, which in and of itself is usually a pretty good idea to be conservative because again, when you're getting lots of sort of false signals and you can identify various layers of structure, it's usually a pretty clear sign that things aren't clear. And you can see just that super messy range in the 4R. You can see wasn't really going anywhere. Obviously, 4R was bullish, so we're obviously expecting the price was probably going to mitigate this demand and then continue the bullish trend. But instead, you can see we pretty much just range sideways for pretty much a couple of weeks, 13th to 19th there for a full week. So pretty much just range sideways. And again, sort of a similar instance on EU at the minute where things just aren't clear in the 4R and the daily. It really could go either way, and for that reason, you just need to be super clear on the M15s. And if there is nothing clear, and you can sort of, like I was looking at EU this morning on the M15, and I was like saying, oh yeah, I could do this and I could do that, and I was literally had like 5 different scenarios mapped out in my mind, and then I caught myself. I was just like, no, 4R and daily are a mess. Just forget about the M15 and just wait for something super clear to develop. So that there range on the 4R is sort of a pretty good example of that, and knowing when to be more conservative than M15, which is obviously why I got destroyed the last day. So anyway, moving on to where we're sitting now, we've obviously had a bearish break structure. There's no demand to the left at all. This was basically at the end of last year when basically there was no data to the left. So there's no daily POIs that we can try and identify to try and, you know, figure out where we might see a pullback. But yeah, as things stand, we're bearish. Obviously, following the break structure, we can expect pullback. So obviously, to play the pullback, we obviously want to see ideally the M15 switch bullish, and then we can sort of play the M15 trend and sort of follow the ranges up to here. You can see that's the EQ of the 4R leg, and you can see it's that pretty clear sweep zone just at the EQ. You can see it's sort of the apex of the move where the supply came into the market to cause that break structure. So that would be sort of a pretty good POI to target. Obviously, of this one here as well, but you know, didn't sweep liquidity, sort of quite a corrective move, and then it just sort of tanked, which generally, you know, whenever a zone's going to play out, it swept liquidity and a lot of supply in the market, which wasn't really the case there. We also have this wick, which directly led to the 4-hour break structure. So if things are going to keep tanking, it's very likely price will just pull back in here and continue lower. So for that reason, on the M15, not completely discounting sells. Now, on the M15, obviously if this sort of range here haven't closed below yet, I don't think. The low was 128. Close that candle. 133. Yeah, so no close below yet. So we're gonna mark that on as a sweep liquidity currently. In terms of supply within the range, there's nothing really massively clear on mitigated that you want to trade from. You know, ideally you want sort of a clear engulf POI. So nowhere currently would really want to look for a risk entry in this range, and this high is still potentially weak as we haven't got the close below this low yet. So not really looking for a risk entry. The one thing I really want to emphasize M15 risk entry as well is like whenever you're thinking risk entry, you think full alignment. It's like you want literally everything to be on your side, structure, order flow. It's just the ones that are super obvious that everything's sort of aligned and you can sort of see that, you know, demand is clearly in control. It makes sense structurally. That's when you really want to be using the risk entries. I see sort of where I see a lot of people going wrong with them in the community is that like they're just sort of, yes, the internal may be bullish, but the order flow is bearish. And it's just if I'm going to take a risk entry, I want pretty much everything to be aligned. So that's just risk entry full alignment. That's one of the things like you just want absolutely everything to be on your side. So I'll start playing this on and we'll see how you go. Still no close below. It's likely we could mitigate some within this sort of larger range and continue lower. Again, there's nothing massively clear on mitigated in it, so just take the range. So yeah, mains to be seen could just tank lower and eventually get the break of structure here. So now we're getting a bit of a deeper pullback. So as I always say, when we are gonna get a deeper pullback, it's usually precipitated by a sweep liquidity. So we've had the sweep here. So yeah, you know, this could potentially be the start of the pullback, but you know, ideally want to see at least this high go. And yeah, I want to see at least that high go and then potentially start looking for an entry somewhere within here. So let's see what happens. Yeah, so we see a decent amount of momentum. Obviously, there could still be something in terms of supply within this extreme. Obviously, it wasn't that clean because there's a lot of wicks there. Just wasn't the best price action, but you know, it's at the apex of this range, so it makes sense that there be some supply within there. There's still no close below, another sweep. Yeah, so nothing really doing at this point. You can see we've left the equal highs here, which could potentially be used to fuel higher prices because again, price needs liquidity to move. If you look at the 4-hour, you can see we have sort of mitigated the wicks that I had identified and tried to push down, so could still follow through. It's just unfortunate that there's no real clear M15 POI within there to look straight from. Let's see what happens. Right, so now we've got our breaker structure. So as expected, 4-hour wick, which led to the 4-hour break structure held as we knew it could. We knew that if we were going to see the sort of deep pullback, it was likely that that was going to have to fail. So just look at the 4-hour. You can see just pull back into the zone, which caused the break structure, and we've now continued lower. So we can call that a 4-hour IBOS as well. Right now, in terms of, can't keep selling here, you know, can't keep selling until something changes. So with that pretty clear 4-hour supply to let the iBoss have the 4-hour inducement in front of him. So obviously you could look at this POI as well, but yeah, we'll mark it on because it's as it's 4-hour POI could play out. So it is worth keeping an eye on. So we have those two 4-hour POIs in the range. So yeah, it's valid to keep selling. So we obviously have this M15 range. In terms of looking for an entry within this, obvious sort of POI is there. The only issue with that is the price will have to take out these highs. So you could argue that then the internal has had to switch bullish to get back there. And as I say, it's full alignment. That's sort of what we're looking for when we're looking for M15 risk entry. So can mark this onto the box as that's sort of the relevant M15 range, which again, the M15 range is the 4-hour POI, as you can see as well. So M15 supply range. So if I was to take a risk entry within this here, not really, I'd be more inclined to wait for order flow to shift again if we came back to this POI here, just on account of this range having to fail to get back there. So if I were to take a punt on a POI within this range, take this one here. See it swaps some liquidity. I think those highs. There is this zone here. But again, if you were to take that whole sort of range, it was tapped into. Whereas if you see where I'm looking at the entry here, you can see we had the impulsive move away. So it makes sense that price going to want to come back here, fill up those orders, and then look for a sell. So I'm happy enough to take the entry there. Understand can push higher, like we have equal highs behind here. So they could get swept. But then again, I know that we've had the 4-hour break structure. We're in the discount of the 4-hour leg. We are going to see a pullback eventually. But yeah, I'm happy enough to take the chance on this POI here. So go 9 pips just to give it a bit of breathing room. And we'll just do the fixed 5-hour. So risk 1% and sell limit save. Now let's see what happens here. Kept on pushing down. There's no massively significant structure that formed here that sort of has me worried. You know, if you compare sort of the size of that range and this range, that all just feels like sort of fractal structure. So the fractal may switch bullish to come back in here and then continue lower. So until we get sort of a more significant, you know, break structure, I'm happy enough to leave that order on. Right now, that's the more significant break of structure. Because again, see, we can view that as internal, I would say. It's not really significant enough to be swing relative to the recent pullbacks. Again, you can keep following the bearish order flow until it changes. You're very clear extreme there. Swap liquidity. There's no M15 lid, but you can see there are wicks there, which are probably lid on a lower time frame, so it is something. But yeah, so no tag on the first entry. We'll get rid of that. And then place the order here. $10 pips. 11 just to give it a bit of breathing room. Don't be a dick for a tick, as I keep reminding myself. And 1%. So again, you're just following the bearish order flow. You can see had this range, sort of impulsive move out of it. So yeah, very likely we could pull back in here and just continue. So again, everything's aligned, swinging and turns aligned. Yeah, so happy to take the chance there. Yeah, so didn't pull back, mitigated this POI here, which again, you're not really going to leave risk entry in that. Didn't sweep liquidity. It makes sense why you play it out, but just it's not really somewhere you want to. You could look for a confirmation entry from it on a lower time frame, but in terms of M15 risk entry, it's just not sort of one you're going to take. Well, not me personally. So we've had another IBOS. You can see in the 4-hour still pretty clear bearish momentum there, but obviously still expecting. You can see in the 4-hour that's the range, and that basically we're essentially just looking to play the pullback at least into here, knowing that we could pull back eventually to the premium of the swing range, which is there. So yeah, happy to keep following the 4-hour momentum. And then once we sort of get the signs of bullish intent in the M15, then we can look for sells. So, or look for buy, sorry. So in terms of this range, there's only really one POI to look at. Again, didn't sweep liquidity. Bit of lid in front of it if you would count that. Slightly far away, but it is something. So yeah, slightly suspect the way these highs have formed. It didn't sweep liquidity. You could argue is trend line liquidity there. So that could potentially be used to sort of fuel the pullback, where price will pull back here, smash through all that, and then we'll sort of be able to look for buys. But again, given the 4-hour and where we're sitting, anticipating the 4-hour pullback, I'm happy enough to, I'd actually prefer to get involved in buys at this point in the M15, but obviously order flow still bearish. It's valid to keep following the order flow. But I'm eagerly sort of waiting for that sign of bullish intent, because again, it's a very high probability framework whenever you're in the early stages of the pullback. So we'll do 10 pips here. Let's see. Took this low. So yeah, personally, it's a bit of a dodgy candle. Yeah, there's probably going to be a loss in the live market. I'll probably cancel the order just because it looks as though price closed below that low. So technically the M15 has switched bullish to get back here, but because it's a bit of a dodgy looking candle, I'm just going to leave the order on here, but it will probably be a loss. And no tag before it absolutely tanked, slightly annoyingly, but yeah, no, it shows. This is where it's something I struggle with myself, where you're sort of looking at the 4-hour and you're seeing this huge sell off, and you're just constantly thinking pull back, pull back, pull back. And for that reason, you're constantly anticipating this structure switching bullish on the M15. And then, you can miss out on a lot of decent sells. In this case here, again, there's one POI within this tight little range. You can see we were just missed on the 0.25, but again, it would have been a very nice trade had it played out, but just no tag on the 0.25. So shows the value. Just keep following the order flow. So now had this huge sell off. Still just count this as yeah, we'll just keep counting it as internal, although it doesn't really matter. Let's just call it swing. Let's just call it swing structure, because the 4-hour at the end of the day, if the M15 does switch bullish, it will be the 4-hour swing pullback. So it does make sense. Sort of just count that as swing structure at this stage. Again, you could have counted these as swing if you wanted. It's all sort of personal preference. something I have noticed myself. When EU was sort of in a messy range a couple of weeks ago, I noticed that I sort of got myself in a bit of trouble with. I was mapping my M15 structure too loosely, swing structure, and then I ended up with sort of various layers of internal, which just ended up confusing the life out of me as we were ranging. So for that reason, I have sort of started gravitating more towards mapping my swing ranges more tightly. Here, yeah, and can just keep selling. See, you've pretty V-shaped recovery here. This range was already mitigated, so it doesn't really make sense to enter on that candle. Obvious place to sort of enter is here. You could just take that candle as well, just cover the wicks and cover that whole little range. Again, seem to have had this aggressive sell-off, which could be the catalyst for the pullback. But yeah, let's just keep following the order flow. But again, every time I'm selling here, I understand this more aggressive, as I know we are eventually going to get that 4-hour pullback. And this aggressive, it looks like it was caused by news, and news movements are sort of notoriously unreliable because of the lack of inducement. And quite often when you get the aggressive sell-off, then price can come back up, and then that's when we see sort of the shift in structure. But we'll give it a rattle anyway. Yeah, there's actually a good thing the way the price is sort of pulling back here, because it is building sort of some form of inducement. You know, you generally don't want to see price just come straight back up. You know, generally if there is like a bit of a pullback, even if it's not clear PBID or anything, in this case it is, because say it caused a shock. So yeah, happy to leave the order on in this case. Yeah, and that was a pretty quick loss. As I said, knew it wasn't highest probability, but yeah, it is what it is. So now we have this little range here, which could be respected, because of course we are all sort of thinking we have the M15 pullback. Now this is still our strong M15 high, so it's entirely possible that having swept this POI that we could keep going lower. However, you can see we had this sort of momentum, bit of a pullback and more momentum. So it does suggest something has potentially changed. And you can see in the 4-hour, we do have those couple of sort of bullish candles, which suggests we may be seeing the pullback up to the previous range. So yeah, let's take a chance on this buy within this range, just in anticipation of potentially catching the pullback. Because again, bullish momentum. Yeah, I'm happy to sort of, not ideal to be trading against the strong M15 high, but just sort of reading between the lines, anticipating the pullback. You can see again, order flow is clearly bullish. We had this range, impulse out of it, and this just looks like a corrective pullback into it for the next leg. So for that reason, sort of happy enough to take the risk here. So 19 pips and then 5R. Yeah, so it just makes sense again. When you have the range, you have the corrective reasonably correct. You have the impulse out of the range, you have the reasonably corrective pullback into it. It makes sense to look for the 4-hour pullback, although we haven't had a bullish 4-hour chalk run on to suggest it may be coming just yet. But in this case, I think it's worth taking the chance, because again, if this M15 high is going to switch bullish, which it probably will, it definitely will, if the 4-hour pullback is going to play out, then this range is most likely going to be respected. So it makes sense to look for an entry within it. And another loss. Yeah, obviously had no inducement, didn't sweep liquidity, but yeah, it made sense to me to be looking for an entry there. We've now swept this low, so it'll be interesting to see what happens next. So there is, by the looks of it, a potential confirmation entry here. Let's get rid of this here. See, obviously we swept that low. So we take that as the M15 PBL. And obviously just wait to see the PBL fail and bullish chalk, and then we can look for potential confirmation entry following the sweep. So we'll play it on. There we get it. And another loss. That's really these are the back testing sessions from hell. But yeah, at the end of the day, that's what I get for trading against the strong M15 high. I was sort of presuming that structure was may shift to facilitate the 4-hour pullback, but we'd no bullish 4-hour chalk, so that it was more aggressive, and I probably wouldn't be taking it in the live market. So now I've had the bearish IBOS, and we got the close below here. In terms of an entry, that's the obvious one. You can see the range. Yes, we have this candle here, but the range was already mitigated if you draw it from there. So for that reason, yeah. So this led the IBOS and swinging in turns aligned. Let's obviously no inducement didn't sweep either, which isn't ideal, but it is what it is. And the big warning sign here is these equals, but this is still the strong M15 swing high. So just trickling around, still haven't mitigated the range. So yeah, let's leave the order on. And now obviously I've had another IBOS. So cancel that order. Yeah, it's feeling pretty dodgy, to be honest. It does feel like there's almost just an impulse and there's just sort of building liquidity to eventually rocket to the upside. So no real clear POI within there that I'd want to place a risk entry on. Let's just wait for more development, see if we get the bullish IBOS. There we are. Could potentially look for a buy within here. Obviously, extreme would be the place. Like, see, we'll have to sort of take out this little range to come back there. So we'll cancel the entry again. You want to ideally see, like, you had the impulse out there, and then you want to see the pullback in. You don't want it to really have to break any sort of structure to come back to the entry. This range looks pretty suspect, just pretty corrective, arcing sort of nature. You can see, rather than it being like, it's a good example, you know, like where you have the impulse out and then the corrective pullback in. We had sort of the bit of a corrective pullback and then a bit of a corrective push up. It just doesn't feel that. You want to see momentum. See, these ranges are starting to hold, so could start looking for entries in them, but they just don't feel that significant. They're quite poorly formed, so I'm just happy enough to leave them alone, because again, if you hide all the drawings, you could just say that this is basically the move down, and this is just basically a corrective pullback before the next leg to the downside, because we have to remember M15 swing is still bearish and we've mitigated the extreme of the range. So let's see what happens. So yeah, you can see those ranges eventually failed. We mitigated. It looks like this POI. Yeah, so swing and internal are aligned again. You can see we've had a pretty nice flip there as well, if you take that command. So yeah, that's a good shout actually, Walker. I will have a look at it now. The 1 hour. The 1 hour is sort of very helpful whenever you're, yeah, and that's exactly it. Yeah. Thanks for shouting that out, Walker, because I was sort of going against my own advice there. You can see that was sort of the impulsive move down out of this range, and you could view that as your 1H boss, and this was just the corrective pullback up for the likely next leg to the downside. You can see those ranges, they're barely visible on the 1H. So, you know, the ranges that are going to hold on the M15, they're generally visible in the 1H, as you can see there, they're pretty just minor pauses in price. So that's where the 1 hour can be very beneficial. So we have this flip. We've had the bearish boss. Obviously, the extreme is the place to enter. Take that. 20 pips. So again, we have this little fractal high. Not massively worried about that, to be honest. You know, price could come back up here, and just it's sort of a case of the fractal structure switching bullish to facilitate the internal objective, which would be sort of the mitigation of this extreme. Yeah, and no tag, you can see it just missed the 0.25 quite annoyingly, so I'll cancel that order, because again, we've had another bearish boss. So yeah, this could be a nice setup actually. Slightly larger stop, which isn't ideal, but it is what it is. Yeah, take profits just past the swing low, but yeah. So M15 swinging and turns bearish. Obviously, we have this sort of bit of a messy range in the M15, which is why you don't really want to be too aggressive within it. But yeah, you can see this zone. It's where the supply came in the market to cause the IBOS. You can see we had the the strong impulse out of the range, and then hopefully just a corrective pull back into it. It's like that. That's what I sort of think of when I think of full alignment. Like, internals bearish, swings bearish, and the order flows bearish as well. So exactly the sort of area you want to be a bit aggressive with the risk entries. And as I said that, I'll probably get smashed here again, but the commentator's curse, as it were. Right, there we are, tagged in. Could trail to break even after the break that low, but I don't really trail to break even in these videos. In the live market, I probably would, but good call in this case. Trail to break even now, just because sort of taking out this low. And if price has to come back up here, then it'll probably, something will have probably changed. And play it on again. This is the unfortunate thing, because we had the bigger stop, we may sweep this low, which is, you know, it's pretty significant 4-hour, and M15 low. It's our M15 swing low. So could sweep this low and then sort of immediately retrace. But you know, just you could set TP at the low, but again, keep it as mechanical as possible and just take fixed 5-hour. Well, that's the most typical thing I've seen in my backtesting videos. Yeah, missed TP by literally. That's just the way it's been going. Literally missed TP by a micro pip. Yeah, that's the way these sessions have been going. But having had a winning trade in like 90 minutes of backtest, and then you miss TP by a micro pip. But that's the way it's going. It is what it is. Could still tank, but yeah. And I just realized that TP set at 5.03. So if I had set it at exactly 5, I'm being a bit more conscientious. Probably would have been hit, but probably gonna be break even now. But it is what it is. On the 4-hour, we swept 4-hour, we closed below. Yeah, we got closed below. So we've had a 4-hour IBOS as well as an M15 break of structure. Had the M15 break structure there. Should have been a bit more on the ball of that. Yeah, so that's our IBOS. I've completely fucked this up and missed buys as well. That's what I get for being too zoomed in my trade. There was a pretty clean buy there. You can see after the first IBOS on the extreme, but I was too busy watching my trade not hit TP. So that was a pretty clean trade. And then you had another one there. So I have completely messed this up now because I was too zoomed in. Yeah, 2 clean trades. No bullish IBOS at that point, but yeah, you could have taken those 2 there. Yeah, that's what I got for watching my trade too closely. You can see these equal highs as well. All that's going to get smashed, so we probably will now see the pullback. I don't think I've been able to replay in this either. I know. I really need to up my FX replay skills, but so obviously I had another IBOS there. Again, that's where the momentum came in, caused the team. Again, this is where, I mean, everything's aligned. Internal is bullish. Swing is obviously bearish, but we're anticipating the sort of all this liquidity potentially getting smashed to facilitate the 4-hour pullback. And then order flow is clearly bearish. So you can see everything below was mitigated. We tapped into that wick there. So this sort of range is the unmitigated thing. You can see we've had the impulsive move out. So obviously the expectation is the price is going to come back in here to facilitate the next leg to the upside. Let's see. It's my sell taken out for break even. Yeah, you can see we mitigated the range, but didn't quite mitigate the refined pivot. All good. Again, you can see once we sort of started to see this bullish momentum kick in, the bullish internal structure, when you looked at these, the trend line liquidity there, it was always likely the price going to come up and just pretty much blast straight through that. So yeah, missed these two trades here. They're pretty much my bread and butter with the M15 strategy, where you basically get the first IBOS, follow on the break structure, pull back in the extreme, look for the buy. So yeah, missed 2 5 hours there. And then obviously took the break even here. But yeah, well, it is what it is. So let's just focus on the most recent price action. So this range mitigated that order. In terms of the ranges now, see all these are sort of mitigated with wicks. Then if this little range here, it's not that significant. It's just sort of like a pause in price. Wouldn't really feel comfortable taking a risk entry on that, to be honest. Yeah, let's just play it on and see. Hopefully we get some sort of cleaner ranges for them. Would not surprise me if we just pull back into this range here and keep going higher, but just don't really want to set a risk entry on it because it's pretty insignificant. So now that should be the right now. So 4 hour, we've had the 4 hour IBOS. So now we're very likely getting the 4 hour pullback. M15 is switch bullish. So yeah, fall and break structure, can expect a pullback. If you look at the 4 hour, obviously if that demand at the extreme, that's pretty much it. So following the 4 hour IBOS could see the pullback as well. M15 break structure, can expect a pullback. So yeah, happy enough at this point to sort of wait for more development. And yeah, you know, if we see some nice, if we see like a nice liquidation and then potentially look for the aggressive pullback. See what happens. We've had a chalk here again. It's not a strong liquidation because this load took out the high, or this high didn't really take on it, didn't cause a chalk run. So we have had this chalk. So you could potentially look for a sell within this M15 supply here. Wouldn't really leave a risk entry on it, to be honest. You can see there is some 4 hour supply there, so it is possible that's going to be the catalyst for a pullback. Again, it's not the best POI in the world, but it makes sense that it could be a catalyst for a pullback. So again, you could look at that there. Personally, I'm happy enough to wait for either another IBOS where you can see supply sort of starting to take control and then potentially looking for sells, or waiting for this high to go and then seeing what happens after that. But let's see what happens. So we've had another IBOS. So now you can sort of say, right, it's possible these ranges are going to hold. Not the cleanest range in the world. You know, didn't sweep liquidity. There's equal highs behind. Maybe it did sweep liquidity actually. Yeah, it did just sweep liquidity behind that high. So, you know, when you have this much bullish momentum, it's always sort of more aggressive, looking for sells. You know, ideally you want like a super clear, strong liquidation, and you know, like a proper build of liquidity. Like, you know, you want to see like a proper sort of clear M15 range form that then gets, you know, takes the high, and then we get the IBOS. You want to see some sort of significant structure like that get broken, and then you can sort of confidently look to play the sells. This just doesn't feel that significant to me. If you just look at it for what it is, it just feels like impulse, and that this is just a corrective pullback, possibly into this range, which as we can see was completely unmitigated. So it makes sense. And when I say completely unmitigated, I mean that when price broke that high, if you call it an IBOS, whatever, you can see it impulsed out of it. It's like the next candle, like the wick didn't even tap into it. So the range is completely unmitigated. And when you have a completely unmitigated range, it's often the case the price sort of gravitates towards it to mitigate it. So it wouldn't surprise me at all, given that this just feels like impulse correction, that price will mitigate this here and then continue higher. Again, could set a risk entry there, but it's just pretty much a very insignificant pullback. Again, if you use the 1 hour to sort of filter, there's absolutely nothing there. Again, the 1 hour, you can see there's no chalk. There's nothing on the 1 hour, which can, again, keep you out of a lot of trouble in the M15. So here, nothing really doing, fully expecting price to run this low. And then maybe that might be the liquidation that may be the catalyst for the deeper pullback. Yeah, just keep trickling down. You can see very low momentum candles. Like it's nothing compared to this here. Like that's ideal that you want to see. That's all just price just correctly trickling down. It's as though it's a bank holiday or something. So yeah, no real interest in trying to trade that, to be honest. Happy just to wait for something clear to set up. Here we've had another bit more of a significant pullback. Haven't mitigated on the left. Could take a chance here. So I'll take that whole. See it mitigated that sort of little range as formation. So yeah, I could take the chance here. Haven't mitigated anything, any clear demand to the left. Don't think we've mitigated the EQ of the leg. No, I haven't mitigated the EQ. So yeah, and this isn't the best, but it makes sense. Order flow's bearish. We haven't mitigated on it clear to the left. Let's just take the chance on it. You can see again, like the key detail is the way price impulsed out of the range. That shows you that like a decent amount of supply stepped into the market. I wasn't interested in this here because like price, you can see there's a lot of wicks, like a lot, there's bearish candle, bullish candle, it's messy right there. So you can see we had the pullback that made the impulsive move out of it. So it stands a sense the price is going to pull back in there and continue lower. So the momentum's sort of the key detail. And another no tag. Right, no, it is what it is. Followed the plan. No point getting too annoyed about it. Now we've mitigated this demand here. We mitigated the discount of the leg. So now is at the point at which it sort of gets more aggressive to look for sells. Obviously, these ranges can't keep being respected. But personally, I'm just happy at this point to wait for basically order flow to shift bullish and potentially look for buys. So let's put it on. Yeah, so now we shifted bullish. Yeah, and this is your high probability framework. It's the first sort of continuation. We've had the pullback, mitigated the EQ of the leg, we've had the bullish IBOS. This is the first phase of the continuation of the trend. This is where you want to sort of get aggressive. Let's just take this whole range as I really don't want another no tag if this is to play out. Again, you can see the range is completely unmitigated. It wasn't tapped into by those wicks even. So it makes sense the price is going to want to gravitate towards there and for continuing higher. So yeah, happy to take this. Yeah, 18 pip stop. 5-1, which lines up nicely with the high. Let's see how this goes. Could just mitigate this candle here and keep pushing up. But as I said, the fact that we haven't mitigated this range yet sort of makes me think the price is going to sort of sweep that candle and mitigate the range. And unfortunately, we did just mitigate that candle quite annoyingly. But yeah, again, you can see the idea is right. The framework played out perfectly. First IBOS, target the week high, the continuation of the trend, but unfortunately just no tag. Wouldn't ever really consider leaving an entry in that candle just because it's only one candle. Again, if you look at the 1H, you know, we were essentially entering within this candle. So again, it's visible in the 1H. That's where you can sort of be kept out of a lot of trouble. Yeah, so another no tag between the no tags and then the no profit target and missing the 2 trades that actually did play out. There's been a bit of a disaster, but hopefully he's understand the thought process and all behind it. Yeah, I just need to learn the next time doing this here not to get caught up in following my trades and actually follow the structure as it forms. Right, so now obviously very little doubt this high is going to go. Could look for an entry within this range, but again, didn't sweep, no inducement. Yeah, let's see what happens. The high will probably go on in, and generally when the high's gone, whenever we get the close above there, I generally sort of reevaluate things. So high didn't quite go. Again, could place the entry here. Just not the biggest fan of the range. It didn't sweep liquidity, no inducement. Yeah, look, it's valid, but I'm happy enough to just take the chance on it, given hopefully try and hit 1 win and trade today. The one thing to note here is that we have these sort of relatively equal highs. So there is liquidity to target and price could mitigate here and continue higher. Again, didn't sweep, no inducement in the live market. It's highly unlikely I'd be considering leaving a risk entry here. I'll probably be, is it visible in the 1H as well? It's wicks. Yeah, it's wicks on the 1H, better than nothing, but it's not ideal. But probably get smashed, but right, yes, come on. That feels good. Yeah, so again, it just shows the power of following the ranges. You know, it made sense. We had liquidity to target. Wasn't the highest probability trade in the world because of the, you know, didn't sweep, no inducement. But again, you know, generally it shows the importance of the understanding the M15 framework. And it was a very high probability M15 framework because the pullback was complete, having mitigated the demand and the discount. So the expectation is that these ranges are going to hold until price runs the week swing high. And yeah, you can see that was mitigated. This wasn't mitigated. But again, if you were to take this whole range, you know, as opposed to refining it to those sort of candles, if you take the whole range, then sort of when price broke out, caused the IBOS, it did tap back into the range. So again, that maybe should have factored that into my thinking a bit more when I was looking under there, but yeah, it is what it is. Right, so 4 minutes left. Let's end this on a winning note, and then we'll pick it up again the next day. I'll just get to a few questions now. David, can you go with the mouse to the entry for a second to see what time was the entry? It was tagged in at 12:45 GMT on 29th September 22. You can use the 1 hour time frame, Jeff, to just filter the M15. Again, it's not something that's absolutely necessary, but I know what it's sort of something that I was doing I started doing it, just sort of filter the M15 ranges, because again, it cuts out a lot of the noise on the M15. Like on the M15, you can have a lot of very insignificant ranges like these here. You can see there, it's like you technically have the chalk, you could even call it an iBoss, and then another range and another iBoss. But then if you look at the 1R, there's literally nothing there. It's just pretty much a straight push up, and then there's no brake structure on. So again, it's just a way of keeping you out of sort of subpar M15 setups, that if it's not visible on the 1R, it's generally a good idea to avoid it on the M15. Whereas here, like if you had like a more significant pullback and then we got a chalk and it was visible in the 1R, well then you could say, right, well, we have a lot of momentum in the 1R, but we've had a bearish 1R chalk, which is likely sort of that the 1R is going to pull back as well. So it's just sort of, again, it's not absolutely necessary, but it is just sort of a nice added confluence to basically keep you out of trouble on the M15 is mainly how I use it. Hopefully that was clear. Does anyone else have any other questions? So most of them trades were from, you can see there, like it shows the power of risk to reward, and just always making sure that you have the risk to reward on your side, because like you can see I got absolutely butchered the last day and that started the session. Like you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 losses in a row. But then pretty much just that one winner pretty much brings the account back up to profit. Obviously had a few winners sort of earlier on in the session, but shows like you can have all them losses and then it's pretty much just 3 winners and you're a break even. So that's sort of the, obviously I don't recommend taking 13 losses on the last day I did this, so sort of I wasn't really in the zone. So that's a pretty large part of the reason why I had those losses. But yeah, that's the other lesson. If you're not feeling great, don't trade, because it's likely your performance is going to suffer. So if nobody else has any questions, I'm gonna call it a day then, and yeah, I'll pick this up next week probably, because I personally enjoy doing these back testing sessions more than just the price action recap. I think it's much more interesting. It forces me to sort of articulate my thought process a bit clearer. So I think I'm going to try and gravitate towards these a bit more going forward, as I think I hear a lot of people sort of prefer it as well. So I think guys, we'll call it a day there then. Thanks very much for your time as always. Hopefully it's took some value from that, and if you have any questions on about it, just hit me up in the questions channel in the Discord and I will get back to you. Thanks guys, goodbye.